At 4:12 in the morning, a cabinet in Germany goes dark. Not a website, not a market. The cabinet, 42 machines behind one metal door, paid through companies that do not really exist, carrying customers you never name out loud. The first alert comes from an upstream provider, then a client, then two more. One wants his panel back. One wants logs destroyed. One just asks, "Did they get the box?" That is the part nobody sees, not the fantasy of a hidden empire. The inbox, the abuse notices, the invoices, the silence where a server should be, the math problem that starts running in your head. Which drives were in that rack? Which wallets paid for it? Which passport was used for the contract? Which messages mentioned the location? Which customer is now deciding whether prison is worse than talking? You did not start here. You started as the man who takes the night call, because the regular technician is sick, the weather is bad, and 70 euros cash is 70 euros cash. You are in a windowless room with failing air conditioning, swapping dead drives, reseating memory, listening to fans scream inside cheap rented boxes. You tell yourself you do not care what is on them. Gambling clones? Pirated streams? Maybe worse. Your job is power on, hands off. Most nights, nothing happens. Then, one machine starts drawing bank complaints. Another appears in a phishing report. Somebody higher up says, "Leave it alone." You leave it alone. That is the first lesson. The money is never where the risk is. You are the one sleeping in your car outside the facility because the reboot window is at 3 a.m. You are the one carrying replacement parts through freezing rain because a client is threatening to stop paying over downtime. You are the one checking access logs over gas station coffee while local patrol cars sit 2 streets away. The people making real money are just usernames on encrypted accounts. You get a day rate, maybe extra for weekends, and the understanding that if police ever ask, you are just remote hands, just maintenance, just a contractor. Then, the work gets more specific. Not keep this machine alive, move this machine, change the customer listed on this lease, delay the abuse complaint until Monday. That is when you learn what criminal infrastructure really is. Not genius, not mystery. Contracts, hosting, IP space, registrars, support tickets, deniability. The product is not malware or drugs or stolen cards. The product is uptime, the promise that when everyone else gets scared and shuts a service off, you will keep it breathing a little longer. That promise has a market. Real bulletproof hosting crews spent years selling servers, domains, and IP space to cybercriminal clients running malware botnets and fraud. Prosecutors later described these operations the same way they describe organized narcotics networks. Not as background support, but as critical infrastructure. That matters to you because it means the host gets charged too. At your level, the job is ugly and small. You answer messages from men who never use real names and never say exactly what they are doing. You stall providers with polite replies about investigating reports. You restore services from unlabeled backups. You work nights because daylight means paperwork, and paperwork means people. The pay improves, but not much. A few thousand a month if nothing breaks. More if something breaks and you are the only one willing to touch it. Then a courier disappears with backup media. And a week of cash. Nothing cinematic happens. One of the older men on the crew finds him first, half drunk in a rented room, saying he panicked and was going to bring it back. They hit him badly enough to make it everybody's problem. Blood on cheap carpet, a hallway camera you forgot about, a hospital visit under a false name, the missing media still missing. And now, because somebody wanted to feel dangerous for 30 seconds, you have a chain of consequences. New phones, new lodging, 2 clients screaming about exposure, a local fixer asking for more money because the area is hot. That is when the line disappears. Before that, you could pretend you were adjacent to serious crime. Now you are inside it. You are moving assets after police attention. You are lying on documents. You are paying people to stay quiet. You are responsible for crews too lazy or scared to do the one thing the job requires, which is not to be noticed. You stop thinking in single machines and start thinking in rows, cabinets, subnets, countries. One location is for noisy clients. One is for backup. One is for the customers who pay extra because they know exactly what they are buying. You work through intermediaries and shell entities the same way dirty exchanges and cybercrime markets did for years. Cases like BTCE and Liberty Reserve matter to you not as headlines, but as warnings. Shell companies, hidden beneficial owners, fake compliance, money moving through jurisdictions faster than subpoenas can follow. You read indictments the way other people read weather reports. Not for morality, for exposure, for patterns, for what investigators call things when they finally put the chart on the wall. Conspiracy to commit money laundering, unlicensed money transmission, asset forfeiture, sealed warrants, extradition. The street disappears from your life, the risk does not. Now it is lawyers with dry mouths telling you not to write anything down. Accountants who never ask where the money started, only how it should arrive. There is nothing glamorous about it. Your day is invoice laundering in the literal sense. Fake service descriptions, padded consulting bills, hosting contracts for customers who do not legally exist. Every document trying to make a criminal support business look like ordinary B2B noise. The money looks large on screens and useless in real life. You cannot put it in a normal bank without questions. You cannot spend cash in volume without tax attention. So, it sits in storage units, behind walls, in half-renovated property, in hardware you cannot enjoy and vehicles that are never fully in your name. You get more comfortable and less free. A bulletproof host is just part landlord, part janitor, part emergency surgeon. The fantasy says you run an empire from a perfect safe house. The reality is stale air, generator noise, and a phone that never stops vibrating. One customer says his panel is timing out. Another says a registrar froze a domain. A third wants assurance that no logs are being kept. A fourth has been arrested and wants to know whether his competitor bought access through the same broker you use. The important thing is not what your customers sell. Drugs, ransomware, stolen credentials, phishing kits. It all becomes the same operational burden. Tickets, bandwidth, resiliency, migration, ownership layers, power bills. If the plumbing fails, everybody blames you. Not because of the drugs, because of the lesson. It ran for years, processed enormous volumes, and when authorities finally moved, they did not just target users. They seized infrastructure, servers, wallets, admin access. The market may be famous, but the infrastructure staff get charged too. So you harden everything psychologically, if not physically. You trust compartments, not people. Childhood friends become liabilities because they know your old name and your mother's address. New associates are worse because they know the money and nothing else. You do not carry the useful phone if you can avoid it. You do not stay in one place longer than habit requires. You tell yourself the communications layer is safe, then you watch one secure service after another collapse. EncroChat taught the same lesson to thousands of criminals in Europe. They thought the platform made them invisible. Then police read the messages anyway. After that, every old chat starts replaying in your head. What did you say too plainly? Which location was implied? Which nickname can be tied back to a lease, a payment, a shipment, a face on camera? The peak of it is not luxury. It is isolation. Maybe you hide in plain sight in a quiet town. Maybe in some ugly rural compound with cameras, backup generators, and a gate that sticks in winter. The cyberbunker case stays in your mind for a reason. A hardened former NATO bunker, treated like an untouchable fortress, still ended with convictions. Concrete walls do not make you invisible. They just make the raid footage stranger. By now, you are no longer serving criminals. You are managing a multinational illegal corporation whose employees happen to be criminals. You do not touch product. You touch fragility. A provider in one country gets nervous. A registrar in another asks questions. A sanctions list updates. A courier misses a train. A power fault in one room takes down business for 10 countries and 20 future defendants. And the world gets smaller. Governments now openly describe bulletproof hosts as essential nodes in cybercrime ecosystems. Once your name gets attached to that category, every border becomes administrative violence. Accounts freeze. Leases get canceled. Vendors disappear. Partners stop replying. You become obsessed with tiny sounds. Elevator motors, gravel under tires, unfamiliar accents on routine calls. A 3-minute silence from a man who normally replies in 30 seconds. You sleep in fragments. You begin to hate objects. Laptops, routers, switches. All of them evidence waiting to happen. Then the opening crisis comes back, only worse. The dead cabinet in Germany was not random. An upstream provider had already been approached. A request had already crossed borders, desks, legal departments. Somewhere, a smaller man than you, in a cheaper room than yours, had been picked up first and offered the ordinary deal. Talk now and maybe see daylight before old age. Or stay loyal to people who will replace you before lunch. He talked, not because he was uniquely weak, because almost everybody talks when the years become real. At 6 a.m., the raid is less dramatic than you expected. Boots on concrete. A ram. Somebody shouting in a language you know well enough to understand the important nouns. Hands. Floor. Warrant. Devices. You do not feel like a mastermind. You feel like what you always were. Administrative labor at the top end of organized crime. A man who spent years moving risk between machines until the risk reached him. Maybe it ends there, with charges stacked under conspiracy, laundering, narcotics facilitation, computer crime, whatever combination fits the evidence they already have. Maybe it ends quieter, with an ambitious underling deciding that dead men cannot cooperate. Maybe it ends in a concrete box so controlled and bright that you start to miss the stale darkness of server rooms. What never happens is the fantasy ending. The money does not save you because most of it was always trapped. The loyalty does not save you because most of it was rented. The infrastructure does not save you because infrastructure leaves records, power contracts, IP allocations, lease agreements, camera logs, access cards, shipment manifests, domain history, chat recoveries, corporate filings, tax anomalies. A logistical machine large enough to make you rich is also large enough to testify against you. And while they catalog the devices from your rooms and image the drives from your racks, somebody younger is already taking the night call somewhere else because the regular technician is sick, the weather is bad, and 70 euros cash is 70 euros cash. Another cabinet is already humming. Another inbox is already filling. Another man is telling himself he is just keeping the lights on.